I wasn't gonna say I don't know, so I just came up with something that made sense. I use big
Yeah,
words
so
in
the
science.
so the Klystrons are the way that it works.
We're pointing at there's a radar station, right? And at nighttime, they boost the power so they can push through ionization. I was using big ass words, and they believed it.
Somehow you have evaded all these conversations I've had with everybody, and I was like, it just never came up where it was like, hey, let's sit down. Everybody else, like with Cetacero and with Alvarez, they all were like, yeah, I'd do it. And then I forgot.
You forgot I existed, bro. I see how it is, bro.
For like a solid year.
Yeah, bro. I feel no. That's how it is, bro.
Hey,
fuck.
I'm sorry, man.
I guess I fuck myself.
But you know what? We came around to it,
right?
And so I was like, you know what? We need to have you on here. So, but anyway, back to how I know you, right? For those that don't know, I know Osvaldo.
Oh,
right?
dude, that's my legal name.
It's your legal name. I know you from the Marine Corps, right? And you were the last of the group that came in of Lance Corporals that I kind of grew up in the Marine Corps with, and there were a couple others, but
they weren't it.
But they like either left or they either transferred to another unit, or they just stopped showing up, like plain and simple. And I was pretty shocked at how many just didn't show up anymore.
Dude, for real, it's like, come on, man. You already knew it was going to take this long. It was going to suck ass because you did it full time for like at least a year.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, man. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Like, look, we did have, to their defense, right? We did have not good leadership. All right. So at least when I was in, you can probably speak to more what happened after I left, because you actually are still in, right?
Yeah.
But you're not on your obligated time.
No.
So you can leave whenever.
Yeah, that's what I told everybody else. I'm like, hey, dude, I can leave when the fuck I want. If you make me mad, I'm out.
Yeah. if you don't say good morning to me one day, I'm done.
Yeah, man. Dude, I have my shit packed in my car ready to check out the moment's notice, dude.
Why? Okay, so here's a question for you. Why are you still going?
I like it. That's it. I like it.
What do you like? Tell me what. I need a better answer than that. What specifically?
I like the fact, like, for one, there a lot of people there are friends now. Like, I get along with them real well, and it's an experience I don't really get outside that world, you know. Like this year, we went to Chile, and that's something I would have gone to go to for free, you know, an experience.
I am very jealous that you got to do that, because that was one of the things I was irritated about, was how it's not that opportunities didn't come up when I was in. It's that they would say we were doing it, and then they were like, we're not doing it anymore. Yeah. And so they would ask for volunteers. And I remember, like, there was several times where it was like, oh, you guys got to be ready, like on standby, because we might be going, like,
they always say that.
They always say that. And so, like, I would like get ready. I'd be like, oh, okay. So then I would start getting all my gear ready and make sure I have all my stuff, like the boots and all that stuff. I'm like, you know, the stuff you would carry in a, what are they called? The lists they give you, the packing list. Yeah. Whatever you would have in a packing list, I would kind of have somewhat ready at all times in like a sea bag. And so I heard it enough times where at some point when I would hear like, oh, we're going to do this. And then I was like, whatever. I wouldn't even bother. Like, I just wouldn't even bother like packing anything. I'm like, I won't believe it till I see it. And that's what it came down to, was it wasn't until I saw it that I would be willing to prepare for it. But you got to actually experience deployment.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was fucking amazing, dude.
It's up to you if you want to go into any details, but
I mean, it wasn't, you know, one of those like movie type of deployment where you're in combat and seeing some, you know, some weird shit. Like, it was pretty tame, actually. You know, we were at basically, you know, a hard base, garrison, basically, in Bahrain. It was Sydney was a port base, and basically what we did was what we do back in the unit, but on a bigger scale. We were basically creating a giant syscom made out of 305 tents, domes, and just a bunch of comms gear. Radio-wise, it wasn't that big because the radios we were using were just want the man packs to talk from one station to the other. We weren't patrols. The big element was data networking. Yeah, that's where we did the more so the cross-cutting and stuff. That and SATCOM.
So you actually had to do your job a little bit. Is what you were telling me.
Oh, dude, it's hell. at first, when I first got there, I still didn't, because our unit was mostly focused on admin stuff. We didn't really learn that much.
Mhm.
When I got there, I still didn't know that much. But the reason I had to learn it was because one day, this when we were in Qatar for supporting the World Cup,
Mhm.
and there was only 2 land scribbles that were radio operators. The other one was a night shift.
Yeah.
And then it was me in the day shift.
Mhm.
And they're like, hey, the brigadier general wants to go to the embassy. He needs all this stuff ready and programmed. I'm like, how?
Yeah. So here's what happened. Let me tell you the story.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so you had to go in front of a brigadier general and basically show him how radio works.
No, I had to program it before he left. Like, it was,
Okay.
we had a gear in the back, in a little, like, where, like, building type area outside the bunker.
Mm-hmm.
And he was getting ready to leave in his convoy, with his protective detail and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they were needing the gear for their convoy and to, talk back to the bunker in case something happened while it was on its route to the embassy. And they were needed, it was 117 Fox talking on IW and a dedicated net. So you could talk back to here and to the main base where we came from.
Mm-hmm.
So it just keeps going out.
No, you're good.
Yeah. And I haven't done it. I did YW once in our unit, and that was when I first joined. I did it by accident.
Mm.
So they're like, yeah, he needs it in 3 hours. I'm like, all right, fuck.
So okay, so you had to
Just figure it out.
on the fly figure that out.
Yeah.
How did that go?
I mean, the other lance corporal, we got some notes from some sergeant that was actually pretty good, and and this other lance corporal, his foreman, he gave me some of his notes, and I just figured, I kept pressing it until it worked, and eventually, like, I programmed it, like, I figured out how to program it correctly off the notes, because those they're good notes, but they're not exact to what you need at the time.
Mm.
I needed to figure out, like, hey, what's this number mean? Where did I get this frequency? What does this mean? Because on the essay it says something else, and on the notes it says something different. So I just figuring it out, testing out different settings, see which one it was, and figure it out. So I didn't want to keep calling it to because he was asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I just figured it out, and I wrote down what was the part, what meant what. And from there I just started. I did it enough times because our regular had a bad hub. So every time we powered it off, it had to do it again.
And so, for those who don't know, the hub is the like the little screen that with all the buttons and all that. Yeah. And so you had a bad hub, and so it kept shutting off on you.
Not that it shut off. It's just the fact every time it wasn't the hub battery was dead. We didn't have one, so it wouldn't say the settings after you turn it off. So every time you turned it back on, everything would drop, including the crypto. So every time we had to redo it, and I was the one having to do it because I was on a day shift for a while. I just had to keep doing it. And at one point I just got the muscle memory. They asked me one time, hey, how you do it? I'm like, honestly, I just move my hands and it works.
Yeah. No, I mean, to be fair, at some point when you do it enough times, it's like muscle memory, and the programming, you just kind of punch the buttons and you can't really explain it. I know I've had to do that where it's like, I just push this, and then like, I don't really like know how to explain it to you, but okay. So then you had to learn it on the fly, and then there wasn't anybody else that you could rely on. You were pretty much the matter expert when it came to that, wasn't it?
After a while I was.
Yeah.
At first I wasn't.
Of course not.
Expert.
Right, I get that. But eventually you were you learned it and had to kind of teach everybody else, right?
Yeah, and there a guy named Foreman, he came from a CLR unit, so they actually did field stuff pretty often. So he also helped me a lot. I'm very thankful to him that he was able to teach me all his radio stuff from like HF and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And when at one point we were all both on the same time frame, because everybody else was gone, the op wasn't going on. And he was teaching me how to do it. We were just doing repetitions the entire time we were out there. And that's how I started getting more of a grasp of radios. And when I came back, it's like, oh, yeah, I know how to do this now.
Right.
Even Zuleta was like, hey, somebody, he was trying to show him how to do IW and dedicated. And I was like, yeah, it's this and this. And Zuleta's like, you know how to do your job now?
So why don't you talk about how do you feel like you were unprepared by our unit to have done all that stuff?
In a way, yes, but also, I could have. You can always do more as yourself. I also didn't really try to learn that much sometimes because we were there. It was very redundant what we did, and it was like that point we got to the point where it was like, I don't care. Like, we're not doing anything important.
Here's what I think too. It also helped that when there was somebody else that knew how to do it, there wasn't a lot of pressure for you to feel like you had to learn it.
Yeah, and also I don't know if you noticed, but every time we did like a training op, you would start off, hey, get the guys that know how to use the gear, so they can learn. But then someone got mad that it was taking too long, like, hey, it's taking too long, and then they put something like Vega on,
Yeah.
and he just do everything himself or
Yeah,
needs.
yeah. And so what would happen, and it's funny because the same thing happened to me when when Vega was gone, was that I kind of had to take over because I had just picked up Corporal right as he got out. I had picked up Corporal, and so then whenever we would have field ops, I would be tasked out to make sure that everything was set up, and so I wasn't a matter expert at radio either when Vega left, so I had to be same way that you said, like you had to kind of you'd touch buttons and see what they do and be like, this is how I program, and then you go to program and you kind of scroll through things and read them and go, it might be this, and then you just kind of punch things in and hope that it holds. And that's what I did for radio. It was like I had to make sure that all this stuff was working, but if none of my guys know how to do it, including me, like I have to learn it and then teach it to them. And that's something that I probably should have tried a little harder to like pick up. But to be honest, I don't learn by watching.
I don't either.
In a classroom.
I have to do it.
I have to like do it and like in my mind memorize which buttons to hit.
Because they'd be doing class like that, like, hey, this is how you do this. I'm completely lost.
Yeah, it's like, okay, great. Now how do you actually do it? Because I don't know.
Like sit next to me and tell me what button to press, and I'll write it down, and then I'll figure it out from there.
I don't even need to really write it down. Once I do it enough to practice it enough times, it's just muscle memory. I'll just be able to punch it in. Should you write it down? Yes, you should, because sometimes you might not touch something for like months and even years. And so yeah, certain things you should write down. But even if it's been long enough, I'll read my notes and be like, I don't know what this means. Like,
dude, it's like we were looking to, I don't know what we were doing. Oh, it was the Whipple. We were using the Whipple at NAT last year. I'm like, I haven't touched this thing in years.
Yeah, and so for those that don't know, the Whipple is it's an antenna. It's a long, well, it doesn't have to be a long antenna. It's an antenna that has like a parabolic dish, and so this goes up on a pole, and then the pole can get raised, and then it can go up pretty high. I don't know how tall it.
35 feet, I think.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know. So if that's what it is, 35 feet then, and it can go up pretty high, and it basically is it's still a line of sight.
Yes,
line of sight radio, and so the way it works is it has to see the other antenna or parabolic dish that it's talking to. That's what he means. Continue.
Now I lost my track where I was going at.
You were talking about the Whipple. You said that.
Oh yeah, you're just like, hey, we got to the Whipple. I'm like, dude, I haven't touched this in years. I gotta find my notes. I'm like, okay, what does it even mean anymore?
Yeah, and so that's what I mean is, so it's almost like it doesn't even matter if I write it down. If it's been long enough that I haven't touched it, I'll look at my notes and be like, this is useless to me because I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
And that's what happened, because I learned the Whipple, like how to program stuff and all that, and we did at our unit use it a couple times.
That's the most thing we use.
I think we used it the most. Yeah, other than the radios, I think that's the thing we used. We pulled out the most and like would talk to each other, but it gets to a point where if we haven't touched it long enough, I think that's the biggest problem is we didn't do enough exercises of everything that we had at our disposal. Because I'm a Track 170 operator, and for those
that's what am I.
Yeah. And for those that don't know what a Track 170 is, it's a bigger version of what I just described, the parabolic dish. It's essentially this one is not a line of sight radio. This one is basically it's a, what would you call it? It's not really satellite either. It's a triple scatter. So it basically it bounces off radiation off the troposphere, and it bounces it to it reflects it really back to and whatever angle you shoot it at, that same angle is going to shoot back the opposite direction. So you just want to line up where the dishes are to make sure it grabs a signal. But they're very, very dangerous.
Oh yeah.
You could I remember in the schoolhouse when we learned those things, we learned about like how at some point somebody there'd be birds that would sometimes just sit in front of it for a while, and they would just they would just die. And I was like, that's crazy. And that you can get some serious radiation damage if you stand in front of it.
It's pretty serious the way when we mark it up. Well, from my seen in Miramar, because they actually use theirs. They have a thing called Muxale in Miramar, and so where they put the track, there's like a line of just dead everything, like
Yep.
turf, trees, and just where they always point us the dish at the same place.
It's serious. It can be pretty dangerous, and that's not the reason why we didn't have it. We had one, but we didn't have. So you have to have 2 points.
Yeah.
So we didn't. I don't think we could. In nautical miles, California is too far. I don't think we could shoot across from Chicago to California.
No,
I think
it's 110 nautical miles, the max distance.
right. So you would never reach it. And so we didn't really have any other units to practice it with. Really, that was the real reason why we never got to practice that. But I think just if we would just program it, if we would have just gotten out there, we don't have to like set it up, right? But we could at least go in the there's a what is it called? The modem, right? You could still program the modems.
Yeah.
And you could put in whatever programming you go through. There was like a whole.
There was a lot.
All I remember is that the way you want to turn the thing on is in a J.
Yeah, that's that, and don't touch a Klystron with anything metal.
Yeah,
that I remember.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are probably hearing us and being like, I don't know what this means. And to be honest, I don't either.
Yeah, I don't remember what it is.
I think that's
I'm trying to think what it means. But I'm like, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's we would make up things because the Klystron, we would say whenever it's like, oh, what's wrong with it? The Klystron, and then we would just say that for a lot of things when people didn't know.
Well, we probably weren't far off.
Yeah, and we weren't that far off, right? But like, the Klystron is it's a little gauge.
Is it? Shit.
See, I don't know. I don't even know.
I just know it's magnetic.
No, I thought it was like the gauge or the. Oh no, that's what you tune.
Yeah, that's a attenuator, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go. That's what it is. See, I don't even know. And that's how little we touched that thing, and that was my job.
Yeah.
That was like my main MOS.
I didn't touch it until we touched it briefly when we were like testing to see if it did turn on. That's about it.
Only time I really got to do that job was when we went to Yuma. We went a couple times, and I went to Yuma and we did the weapons and tactics instructors course. Yeah. And that was probably the most I ever got to use it was that, but it was already set up. Like we had gotten there and the thing was already set up. The waveguides, like cables that connect to those giant dishes were already connected. Yeah. And so we really didn't get to from beginning to end set it up. Just we would program on the modem and that was it.
Yeah. I mean, the setup is not that hard because everything fits in a certain place. You can't really fuck it up that bad.
That's true. Yeah. No, but if you do,
that shit's gonna fall.
But if you do, it's gonna be bad. And so anyway, long story short, that was what we did. And but before all that, let's scroll back to your to your childhood.
Oh, dude.
I literally know very little about how you grew up.
Same.
Well, there you go. So what was it? Where did you grow up? Where were you born?
So I was born and raised in Gage Park, Southside Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Same house since I was a baby. So I haven't moved anywhere since then. Same neighborhood, all that. It's upbringing wasn't really that bad. My parents weren't bad off. My dad had a decent job. My mom took care of me. Like my parents don't even drink, so it wasn't. I know some people have like toxic relationship with their parents, and like mine was actually pretty decent.
Nice.
Yeah, I got lucky with my parents. They actually try and teach me, the right from wrong and stuff and all that. I'm just retarded.
Why do you say that?
Oh, dude, I would get into so many fights when I was a little kid, especially with my cousins.
But there's had to have been a reason. Do you think about why you were like that? I don't accept. I was retarded. I don't.
No, that's not a joke. No, the reason I would get mad at my cousins is because they would touch my stuff, and I was growing up. I was very careful of my things. Like I didn't like treating my stuff because I'm like I knew how hard my dad worked for it, and my cousins were a little bit more spoiled, so they would break things very easily and be like, "Oh, just get another one." Me, like I didn't grow up, materialistic. It was like I got something, I took care of it, so it can last me a long time. Like I don't remember the Nintendo DS, the blue one that came out. It was like kind of curved. I remember that one.
The 2DS?
No, the DS, the DSi, not the DS.
Oh, the DSi. Okay, yeah.
The one, it was the version before that. Dude, I had that thing for me like 15 years. And I gave my cousin one time because he broke his, and I had the newer model. It's like, here, I don't have one. You can use this one. He broke it in a year. and that's what made me mad. My cousins is like, they would just break everything. And then it was me, I would do what you do. I have stuff, put away nice and neat. I mean, it's not neatish, but it's there. It's not broken. I would, just keep it nice. And they were more, or what? I mean, I'm the oldest, so I mean, kind of checks a little bit.
How many siblings? Are you the only child?
Oh yeah, I'm the only kid, so
So your cousins were your siblings.
basically, yeah. Because at one point, a couple of them lived with me in my house, which is actually the only one I still tolerate that much.
Well, I mean, if you've lived with people, whether they're your cousins, your siblings, roommates, or whatever, when you live with someone long enough, they kind of just become like siblings.
Yeah, they do, and it is fun, having someone like with you growing up, especially when you're a little kid, because your parents can only like tolerate you so much until you annoy the shit out of them.
Sure, but like how close in age were they to you?
Oh, they're pretty far. I think the one I have some here in Mexico. The only one that's closest to me by a couple of months is the one in Mexico. The one's here. The one second to me, like in age, is probably I think like 2 or 3 years age difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just goes down from there. So
I always poked fun at you for this because it's so hard for me. It was so hard for me to believe that you were Mexican. But then I hear you, and it's like, wait, you do have an accent. Like you do,
Yeah.
you do have like a bit of an accent, but it just doesn't. You just don't look
hey, man, I
Mexican.
have privilege, all right.
I'll bet a lot of people confuse you because
Oh, dude,
because it's just when I looked at you, I was super confused. I'll tell you this. I was super confused when, the group, a lot of us are like either Mexican or
straight up just white.
or Hispanic or something. But like there's a mix. And then, so our little group of like Spanish speakers,
Yeah.
we would be talking. And then I remember when you checked in and you just came in and I assumed you didn't know what we were saying or anything. So we would just say our own thing. And you were quiet. When you first checked in, you did not say much.
I was also too deprived.
You were what?
Dude, I was nervous. I was nervous for my first day of checking into the unit. I didn't sleep that night.
Oh, really? What happened?
I was like nervous about going to drill the first.
When you went, did you go straight from the schoolhouse and check in, or how did that? Or did you take a break?
No, I checked into 84 drill.
Okay.
Until it was already a day. I think it was on a comp day when I checked in.
Okay.
For them. So I didn't see anyone. I saw like admin, and then that's about it.
So here's something that I was upset about. When I checked in, I was told basically. So my order said that I had to check in, that I had to be there, like basically drilling that day. So I was under the impression that like the day that I arrived from the schoolhouse, I had to be at drill.
Yeah.
So I was like, so I have to fly in, check into my unit, and literally do drill. And so I go there all like messed up. I wasn't told that you could actually you don't have to check in till like drill, technically. Like that's what they told me. It's like, yeah, you're here early. Like no one's here. Like who's gonna check you in? No one's here. And so I was like,
yeah.
So I got off the plane, right? And my alphas, my uniform that you used to check in, it was all like scrunched up,
all
wrinkled and all that because it was in the body bag, like the bag we put. That's pretty messed up for nobody who doesn't know what that means. A body bag is what we call the bag that we carry the uniforms in. It's
a garment bag.
Anyway,
It's not
I noticed the moment I said it, I was like, ooh, if anybody doesn't know what that is, they're gonna think we're just like murderers. But anyway, so that bag was all crumpled, and I specifically told the person that because I had to kind of check it in. They wouldn't let me carry it.
Really?
Yeah, they told me to check it in, and I was like, can you please make sure it doesn't get folded? And what happens? I get it back folded, dude. And so
it's folded like 4 different ways.
And so then I get it and I open it. I'm like, oh my god, it's like wrinkled everywhere. And so I had to get dressed in I got dressed into those alphas in the airport at when I arrived at Midway, or not Midway, at O'Hare.
Yeah.
And so I got dressed and I look and I was like, this looks terrible. Like I'm gonna get yelled at. And sure enough, I went to check in and. There's a staff sergeant there and admin.
Yeah.
And he yelled at me. Like he blasted me for because I had lost weight. And my on top of it being wrinkled, I lost weight. The belt I had to tighten the belt for it to not droop. And so I had to tighten it so much that it wrinkled the sides.
Yeah.
Because I had lost weight. It was too loose. And so when I tightened the belt, it would wrinkle the sides. And I don't know why he thought that he was saying that, oh, like, how did you get fat already? it wasn't that. It was the opposite problem. The opposite was that actually I had lost weight and I had to tighten the belt for it to not drop. And so I got yelled at, and then I eventually got sent over to transmissions. No one was there. Only the I was there.
Yeah.
And so they were like, yeah, well, I mean, there's really nobody here. and that's what they're like. I mean, we can kind of take you around and see if anyone can sign some things off, but they're like,
oh, dude, when I came in, no one was there.
That's what I'm saying. And so like it was kind of a waste. Like they wouldn't have cared if I didn't check in that day. Like I could have just checked in during drill.
I don't know why they don't specify that.
They never did. And so in theory, you could check in first day of drill.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like also, like I was like you, like count the plane. It was early in the morning. It was like 5 or 3 in the morning. Probably came back and like told my dad, hey, at this time we have to go to the base so I can check in. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm out here, tired as shit. But my uniform was, still pressed, nice and neat. Because I'm just like, I didn't even ask any questions. I'm like, I'm taking this with me. I didn't ask permission. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah. and so then you were pretty nervous, pretty quiet when you first checked it, or when you first started drilling. So you didn't say much. So when we had a group of guys, we would joke around. You already know how we say things to each other in Spanish sometimes. And the first time I heard you say something in Spanish, I turned my head 360. Like, what?
Like, is he fucking with us?
He's one of us? Like, what?
One of us.
One of us. I was like, where did that come from? I was like, explain yourself. How did you infiltrate us? And then you're like, no, I'm Mexican. I was like, prove it. And then you started telling me where your family's from. I was like, damn, he's Mexican.
He is one of us.
He is one of us. And so, where your family's from? Michoacan. Yeah, that was. Did they grow up there?
Yeah, they grew up there. Both my parents grew up there, internalized. And actually, it was weird when the parents grew up in the same street, just different sides of it. Mm-hmm. They met over here, though.
They met here?
Yeah, they didn't meet over there, and they were neighbors.
What? Yeah, neighbors here or neighbors there?
In Mexico. They grew up on the same street, just on different sides of it.
Okay.
And they never met over there, but they met over here.
What?
Yeah.
How? Where did they meet?
One of my dad's cousins introduced him. That was a friend with my mom.
Man, that is a story.
Yeah, dude.
So how did you not run into each other when you were in Mexico? It's like if you're neighbors.
That's what I asked.
But did you ever live there? Spend time there?
Only for vacation. That's about it. Yeah, I like Mexico, but not that much.
Well, I lived there for the first.
I don't know. You're a real immigrant.
No. So, technically, no, I'm not. I am technically third generation Mexican American. Yeah. But I actually lived in Mexico. And I think that is a pretty unique story because a lot of Mexican Americans didn't spend much time living in Mexico.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I can say. My first language was Spanish. I didn't speak English when, well, at least not well, when I came to the U.S. Because originally I was born in California, and then I moved to Mexico for 4 years, I think. So I would have been like 5, 6 years old when my mom left, and because my parents split up, and my mom came to Chicago, and so I had to learn English, and it was hard. Like I had to go to a bilingual class because I didn't really speak English well, and so so you grew up in Chicago pretty much, or where was it?
Gage Park.
Gage Park.
Yeah.
That's where you were pretty much all your life.
Yeah, dude, my elementary school was like 5 minutes from my house. And where we live, everything's like they walk into this. So I didn't really leave my neighborhood until high school.
I think so. Here's a cool thing about, well, not a cool thing. Here's a thing that I think is similar to what you went through in the suburbs. It's very much like that, where it's like I didn't grow up. I can't say that I 100% grew up in like the Oak Forest area, but I did spend a big chunk of my life there. From the time I was, I think, 10, like 9 or 10. I was in the area already. So I did spend a great deal there. And what I noticed, a great amount of time there. And what I did notice is that most people who grew up in Oak Forest and the suburbs, they don't really leave. They don't really stay. They stuck around. I've seen a lot of people that And it might be just because like they know everybody and it's very tight knit, and I get that. But there's this habit of, because everything is close, like all the great supermarkets are nearby, the grocery stores, the what have you. The job is close. That's the one good thing about the suburbs, is that your job is pretty close. Your schools are pretty close. Everything's pretty close proximity, so you don't need to leave.
Yeah, it's nice.
But the downside is there's not. Eventually, you do all there is to do in the suburbs, and you look for, like, for me, the Marine Corps was also not just that I wanted to do that, but also like I got tired of being in the suburbs. Like it just feels like a cage. Like for me, like, okay, I've seen all there is to see here. I've hung out with people in different all parts of the general area that I'm interested in being, and I just want to go see something else. And that was part of my reason for enlisting, on top of the many others that I had. But for you, you had something similar like that?
I mean, I did, not to like the degree where like that. I do wanted to leave.
Yeah.
I was lucky. My mom did it, like when she was younger. She did like see the city, so she knew where to take me. Like to museums, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was mostly what was my entertainment when I was little. Was going to museums, exploring the city, and then eventually my mom started putting like, that was a very hyper. I have ADHD. I'm very hyper. I was very hyper little kid. So my mom was putting like sports and stuff, and that's kind of what started getting me out of being just there.
Mm-hmm.
My mom just forced me basically to go out.
Why did you want to be a Marine?
Well, it's not as something that's cool. Some people are like, yeah, I want to serve or anything. I just I did see the commercials, but I did originally want to join like the military. But I was in high school, I'm like, how am I going with National Guard? Because they're the ones that showed up to our school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, I don't want you. I want to go to college and all that. I'm like, okay. And I was in college. I was like in my second year, halfway through it. And then my recruiter just calls me and like, hey, you want to join? I'm like, I'm thinking about it. And I have an uncle who was in the Marine Corps too.
Mm.
And I talked to him. He's like, yeah, it's a great experience. He was a reservist. But he was during the Gulf War. And he just talked some of his stories. And I'm like, sounds pretty cool. And talked to my dad. He's like, yeah, you do it. Do it. I was like, do it. Mom was like, don't do it. My dad's like, go ahead, do it.
So your mom or your dad said do it, or
my dad said go do it, like experience it. My mom's like, no.
Obviously she's gonna be afraid, because like my mom wasn't a huge fan when I first told her about it. But one thing that I will say, here's something that I can tell you that I remember being like a thing that I will do if I ever have children and they tell me they want to do something that maybe I'm not a huge fan of. Like at the end of the day, she would tell me like, I'm not going to stop you. Like if that's what you want to do, I'm not going to stop you, but I don't want you to do it. Like
that's my mom.
Yeah. And so there was that of like, I'm not going to get in your way. But I'm going to tell you that I'm not a fan. And so something that I do remember is getting that respect of like, okay, you're an adult now. Right. And so for you had your dad who's for it and your mom was against it. And so was it just that, you spoke to the recruiter and you liked the Marine recruiter better, or what was it?
No, it's just when I was thinking about the National Guard, I was still in high school. And then, I talked to the guidance counselor about it and all that. And they're, in high school, they're going to dissuade you from all that. They want you to go to college. And my mom also was, against it. So I kind of just dropped it,
Uh-huh.
It was a quick thought in my head. I'm like, it'd be cool to go.
Yeah.
I see like the movies. That's what got me like, I want to be like the movies,
What movie was it for you? Full Metal Jacket?
No, I actually never saw it until boot camp.
Oh, that's great. You watched it in boot camp?
Yeah, when I was at MRP.
Oh, we got to talk about that too then. So then before we go to that, you just talked to them and you just kind of had it in your mind about like
going to the military. Yeah.
Okay.
And since the Marines that weren't really in our school, it was mostly the National Guard that was there, all the Army. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds cool. And like you see action movies, I'm like, oh yeah, the soldiers, cool and stuff, shooting guns. I'm like, that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And from playing Call of Duty and all that. But yeah, then I got dissuaded because the guidance council was like, yeah, if you go there, you're stuck for one job for the rest of your life and all this other stuff. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, the guidance counselor was kind of shitty.
So we're not American, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, no. And she's like, I know what you're talking. She just told me, because I remember this. She said, my brother's in the Army, and he says it sucks. I'm like, not thinking about it. I'm like, Bro's a bitch.
well. To be fair, like
does suck.
it depends on why you join.
Yeah.
I do think that matters because like
Yeah, it does.
a lot of things sucked at our unit, but I never regretted joining.
Oh yeah, the same.
And so it really does depend on why you joined. And so how do you get to so okay, so the guidance counselor
Yeah, they just persuaded me. So I decided, I'm just gonna go to college. I went to community college because it was cheaper and all that. I'm like, I know I'm gonna save some money. And halfway through my second year, I get a call from a recruiter. He's a Marine Corps recruiter. He talks to me. I started getting that little wanting to go again.
That little itch.
Yeah, I'm like, I wanted to do it.
What? So how did he contact you? How did he get your information? Did you request it at some point online or what?
No, he was in charge of my district for where my high school was.
Yeah.
So he pulled up my phone number and just called me.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I was already out for like a year and a half.
Crazy, because that. So here's how it happened for me was, I didn't know the Marine Corps had reserves, and so for the longest time, I thought it was something you had to do active duty if you were going to do it. I thought the Army was the only branch that had reserves, and so because you hear it all the time, like Army Reserve or National Guard or whatever you want to. Either to me, National Guard, although it is it's different in the sense that you're technically, it's technically not supposed to deploy like abroad originally. That wasn't a thing until the Bush administration.
Yeah.
They used to just be home here, and which is what they're supposed to be. And so I know that there's a difference, but it's similar in reserves. Anyway, so for me it was I had gotten out of high school, and same thing you mentioned. My sister like kept pushing it on me to go to college. So I'm like, I'm going to try it. If I don't like it, I'm not doing it. and so I went to community college, and sure enough, I hated it. I'm like,
I fucking hated it.
It's high school again. I was like, this is high. This feels like high school again.
Just the fact that at least there you can leave.
Yeah, you could. Yeah. And so that's why. But I was when my recruiter reached out to me, the way that it happened was I didn't text. I finally thought about doing active duty.
Yeah.
And so I looked up the Marine Corps, like the website. And then on the website, I saw reserves. I was like, no way. And I looked up the information about it, and it said, all the things like the once a month, 2 weeks out of the year thing. And I was like, oh, I could do that. Because like the main thing is the reason why I didn't want to do active duty is because to this day, I don't like being bogged down to one way of doing things. I don't like that I can't, if I wanted to, go do something else while I'm doing it. Like you could go to college and you could do, but you're limited. Like I cannot say, I am not as free as I would be if I was not in, because there's certain things you can't say. And I found out even in the reserves, there's certain things you can't do. There's certain things, when I tried to do stuff, like I remember for like MMA, when I was doing the training and all that stuff, I wanted to do a little training video with Marines, and I had talked to a couple Marines about it, active duty, and they were like, you can't use the Marine Corps like as a
it's like image.
Like an image thing. And I was like, that sucks, because I'm not. It's a good thing. This is helpful for the Marine Corps. Like I'm pushing like the training that we do, and to mix it with civilians. Like I wanted to have that connection, and they were basically saying like, no, you can't do that. And so I was like, okay, so then I basically can't do, like I can't fully do other things. But in reserves, you do have at least the freedom to when you're away from the unit, live a different lifestyle. And that's what I wanted.
Yeah. Even though sometimes it is kind of hard doing that.
It is hard doing that. And I didn't realize that until I checked into my unit and I started doing my own stuff. And I was like, man, as I go up in rank and as I moved up in leadership, it got even harder. Like when I got up to platoon sergeant, I at some point, like I was doing meetings, and then so I would, and this was in my free time. Like this was not during drill. I was doing meetings outside of that and preparing paperwork, and I was doing a lot more work without pay when I was in reserves for the Marine Corps, and then also doing my civilian job. So I didn't realize that how it would be difficult. I figured it would be like pretty easy, right? Yeah. Should be. And I found out that actually the balance is hard. And that's probably the thing that originally motivated me anyway, was that I wanted to do other things. And yes, it was difficult, but I don't regret my decision. When people tell me like active duty, when I tell them, they're like, man, you made the right choice. Cause we weren't doing, like active duty wasn't doing much either, at least during our time in.
No.
And So we weren't like the Marine Corps hasn't deployed like majorly deployed in a long time, and even active duty side, there's not a lot of combat deployments going on, and it's
they're the only ones to do it is probably just infantry. That's it.
right. So yeah, most guys that I was talking to that were active duty were telling me like, yeah, we're not really doing anything. So I was like, okay, so I don't feel like I made a bad decision. For you, what was it like that drove you into Marine Corps Reserves? Why didn't you do active duty?
So I also didn't want to do the active duty just because I wanted to try it out, and I didn't know there was reserves either when I was talking to recruiter, and he's like, I don't know, I'm still in college. He's like, well, you can also try reserves. I'm like, what's that? He's like, reserves is when you only do like once a month. You stay where you live, and you just go to the base, and you stay there for like a weekend, and in the summer you do like a longer training, but you come back home at the end. I'm like, that's not bad. I kind of like that. And I started looking into it. I'm like, okay, I see it's a bit more freedom. I can try it out, and if I don't like it, at least it's not as bad as doing it every day. Because that wasn't gonna be a bitch and just leave,
Yeah. Well, and so then okay, so then you get to talking to a recruiter. I imagine they reach out just randomly.
Yeah.
And so they told you there, like while you were in the recruiting office. How did that happen?
No. He told me that about the second phone call I had with him. And I was talking to ask more information, and then he did a thing where he comes to my house, right?
Yeah.
And that's when my mom also had questions for me, and they were talking about it, and I brought that up because my mom also wanted to know what I was getting into myself into, and yeah. I also did it kind of to like not make her as nervous about
fair enough.
Yeah. I'm saying like, yeah, it's reservists. We don't do anything. And he also says like reservists don't really do much. And yeah, that's kind of like one reason.
It was also to satisfy the itch that you had, but to also not do it in a way that was gonna make your mom upset.
Yeah, and significantly impact my life because what I did would have changed everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, you were the only child, so you were gonna be basically
I was gonna be gone.
Yeah, you were gonna be gone. Do you ever regret it? Do you feel like you made the right decision?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some great times in the Marine Corps, and when it does suck, it's for a short period.
Yeah.
So that's one of the good parts, and I can say no to some orders, because I'm like, hey, I can't. I got work or I got college school.
That's true. You can on reserves when they tell you, hey, we're gonna go out here. Like you can reschedule things. You can, for the most part, move it around if it interferes with your civilian life. And so then how did what gave you the itch to do deployments and all that stuff?
That's just from seeing movies and then talking to my uncle and all that and other people I've known. And when I got to unit, it made it seem more cool when I was talking to like the older guys that have actually deployed. And like, hey, this sounds pretty interesting. Something I would want to do. A deployment. See some other side of the world that I've never seen before. Another side of the military because I'm a reservist. I haven't seen that kind of activity stuff. And that was when I first came in. 6 years later, I'm in deployment.
Yeah, and then how was it? How did it go compared? We did talk about it briefly, but in short, how did it compare to what you thought it was going to be?
Well, it was not gonna lie, it was a lot because the way we were doing, we weren't really in a fob or something in the field. We were in the barracks and stuff. So it was a lot like being on AT when we just do like a field op in the backyard, with the added bonus like we're in a different country and our mission is a bit more real this time. There is actual things that were at stake. They weren't there at no point there was lives at stake, but it was there was also I don't know, say like it wasn't lives, but it was a mission was at stake. A higher degree of mission because it was real world.
Right.
So there was an actual consequences if we didn't make it. Someone was gonna get fired. Someone was gonna be removed from command. Something like that.
Yeah. And so you got to see the more reality because like in the movies you see all the action stuff and and so you think, oh, that'd be cool, but there's a lot more. It is serious, but just not in the way that you thought it was, right? Yeah,
I mean, like I said, it wasn't a combat deployment.
Yeah,
it was technically in a combat zone, but we weren't.
It wasn't like anybody was getting combat action ribbons, right?
No, we were doing any. We weren't doing any patrols or anything like that. So before I left it to the deployment, I did think that. I talked to Bonnie, who was already out there. Hey, are you guys doing like patrols and shit like that? And he's like, no, dude, we're like in like Kansas the entire time. We have AC, we have Wi-Fi. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is great. Then
Yeah, so,
it's a vacation. Then.
so I'm just going on vacation.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, near a combat zone.
Yeah.
But no. So then overall, here's what I noticed, right? And this is just my observation. I just noticed that when you came back a little more confident. That was one of the things that you struggled with was the confidence in, because you need knowledge to be confident. Yeah. That's what I learned is that in order for me to be able to be confident as a leader, I have to be able to know this stuff so that when I talk to somebody, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the thing, but also what I learned is how to bullshit people. that was a skill.
You do learn that skill too, yeah.
That was actually very useful when I was a guitar. When there was a master sergeant asking for an answer, I'm like, I wasn't gonna say I don't know, so I just came up with something that made sense. I used big words.
Yeah, so the Klystrons are the way that it works.
No, what I used was, or a problem we were in Qatar was I did air base. It was a lot of radars and for the Patriots and all that stuff. And there was actual real interference, but not as much as we let on. It came to like why things were working. It's like sometimes we'd ask, hey, why is it in comms? I'm like, I'm sorry. So we're pointing at there's a radar station, right? And at nighttime, they boost the power so they can push through ionization. I was using big ass words, and they believed it.
Yeah,
I mean, I wasn't far off, but I wasn't exactly right.
So here's one thing that I did something similar, but it's true. It is true that there's interference, that you can get interference from other frequencies, and so like for when I was in Camp Pendleton, we were doing. It was not Camp Pendleton. It was Miramar, where we were doing a high frequency radio shot over a mountain. Yeah. And the problem with that, we were doing it with equipment that, first of all, wasn't ours. It was broken equipment. It was equipment that wasn't used because the gear that they did have in Miramar, they had taken on deployment. Yeah. So most of their guys were deployed, so they took their good equipment. They left behind the scraps. And so when we got there, originally we were there to support. We were not there to run it. Yeah. And so we get there and no one's there but one PFC that had just checked in from the schoolhouse who didn't really know anything. And so they're like, okay, your job is to talk to, we're going to have a forward, like forward deployed element, and then you're going to have a base. And so I was like, okay, so it's just us though. Like, okay, so yeah, split into groups between you guys. Like it's 2 of us. Yeah, it's like, that would only make 2 per side. No, really, it was 3 per side that we had eventually. Yeah. And so then it was between us, and we go out there and we don't have radio antennas. Like we don't have anything. So only thing we had was slash wire. Oh. And they wanted us to have to establish a link between the main side and forward. And so the problem with that, we were forward. So we were out in the field and we were by a mountain. So we had to shoot over a mountain to get to talk to main side. Yeah. And the problem with that is, so there is interference when it comes to slash wire or in HF shots because they're the slow moving waves. And so I tried to explain to this gunnery sergeant from their unit who was yelling at us saying, you guys better have communications every hour on the hour or I'm going to go over there. And I tried to explain it on the phone because I was Woods from our side. He was technically the NCO of that side, and I was the NCO of that of the field. And so he was texting me and he was telling me, hey, we have to do this every hour on the hour. I was like, that's impossible. And he was like, dude, like this is coming from above me. Like we have to be able to have communication every hour on the hour. I was like, okay, so then what happens when comms goes down? He's like, dude, I'm just passing along the message. And so I was basically telling him that. And eventually, I don't know if he had a conversation with a gunnery sergeant and he told him that I said that or that I don't know what happened. But at some point, he got on the phone, he called, and he had, I don't know whose phone it was, but he talked to me. He's like, you listen to me, Marine. He's like, every hour on the hour, you're going to have radio checks. And if I don't see that on the log, I'm going to go out there myself. He's like, I'm going to go over there and we're going to have a conversation. I was like, because I have a captain on my neck about having comms established. And I told him, I tried to tell him respectfully. I was like, Gunner Sergeant, so we don't have, he's like, every hour on the hour. And then he hung up the phone. I was like, great. So this is impossible because we don't have a radio. We don't have an antenna that's powerful enough to be able to push that signal consistently.
Yeah.
Funny enough, with the equipment we had, with the slash wire, we got comms. Like we were able to do positive radio check, but at certain times in the day, because the weather interferes with HF shots. The weather does interfere.
Anything blocks that.
Yes, and so I told him, and I tried to tell him that why we didn't have comms. He's like, "Oh, why didn't we have comms every hour on the hour?" And so he showed up the next day because he saw the log that we missed between certain hours. He thought we were asleep. He thought we went to sleep. We didn't sleep that night. It was just us three. We stayed up all night trying to get comms. And he comes out there and he's like, "Where's comms?" I was like, "Here we go." And Vega runs to. I see him take off to the front of the because we were in a 7-ton, in the back of a 7-ton. That's where all our radio gear was. Yeah. And so I see him bolt to the driver's side. He gets in the driver's side and he just sits there. And one thing I will say is the other Marine that was there, she didn't have to come over. Benz. She didn't have to come over because she was over at some class. She was sitting like away. And so when he said, "Where's comms?" and he came over, it was just me. So I was just going to get blasted by myself. And she ran over and was like, she stood there and took that with me while she could have just been sitting there and not been a part of it. Like Vega did the smart thing. He bolted.
I mean, I would do the same thing.
And so that's what I'm saying. So I was stuck there. I couldn't go nowhere. So he came over and he yelled at me and he was like, "I told you not to go to sleep." He's like, "I told you every hour on the hour." And I keep trying to say, Gunner Sergeant, just over again, trying to like tell him, like, "Good to go, Gunner Sergeant." And I kept trying to get a word in, and he just shut up. He's like, "Shut up!" And so I just okay. So I just let him yell at me, and then he said, he's like, "You do that again, we're gonna have paperwork." Blah blah blah. He started saying, I was like, "Cool, dude, like awesome," but it's just like, why? Like you don't understand radio. Like why?
Was he radio or was he something else?
No, he was just a gunnery sergeant that was in charge of the op. And so it was really important to them to have comms, and understandably because comms are important. Yeah. But he didn't know, and then I try to explain to him is that we have broken gear. It's not our gear. We don't have what we need to set up what you want, and that's not our fault. And he didn't want to hear it, but he took off and whatever. But those are the experiences that we talk about that were like, yeah, these kind of they sucked. Yeah. But if I wasn't with these people. Like, but because I was with these people, it made it better.
Yeah, you can talk about it later. Like this shit was bullshit. This some bullshit.
Yeah, and we did.
After
it was funny after, and we had moments where we all got annoyed. And I remember one time, Ben's like, it's the funniest memory I have of that op is one time we were setting up cables. Yeah, and like everything got tangled. Because we were setting up for the masts, we were setting up like not the mast for the slash wire. We had to make a sloping V, right? Yeah. And so we had to tie down the cable, and we couldn't let the cable touch the actual, what do you call it? The stake. Oh. Because then it would short, right? It would ground itself. Yeah. So you had to have it floating, kind of, when you would attach a string to it. It couldn't touch metal. Right. So we would do that, and we had it kind of floating in that way. But the cable the slash wire kind of got intertwined and couldn't undo it. Yeah. And I just saw her like kind of trying to take it apart, and we were up super late, and so she was just frustrated and sleepy and hangry, and I just saw her go like, "Hey, just throw the cable." And I laughed, like I just thought it was better. I laughed, and then she laughed because of like how ridiculous it was. This op was making us, but it was funny in the end because it's like if I was doing this by myself, this would be awful. But because it was us in a group, it wasn't bad. It was doable.
Yeah, having people that you're good with, definitely makes those shitty moments better.
Right, and that's all it takes sometimes is just, and that's what you remember, and that's what you really miss when you get out. That's why I try to keep in contact with all you guys, because you don't get these kinds of friendships anywhere else.
There's certain we can say each other.
There's certain things we can talk. There's certain ways I can talk to you that I can never talk to any of my friends, even the ones that I've grown up with.
Yeah.
Like there's just lines, there's boundaries with them that are much looser with Marines.
The thing is, we don't really have any boundaries, dude. Like
we're so comfortable, I think, with each other.
Bro, I think maybe because we shout at each other for like, you know.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
That was probably people did it.
That's true. There was at some point where a bunch of naked men were literally inches from each other in the shower. Yeah.
No balls, nothing else. Just all of you just there.
Exactly. And so you do get a different experience. That is a different level of I guess it's intimacy, really.
At that point,
it is intimacy at that point, and that you don't get with civilian friends. And so that's why we all understand that, and we kind of, now that I think about it, it's more like a trauma bond, really, that we form. It's not. I don't know that it's healthy.
You're not wrong.
I don't know that it's like the healthiest thing, but to be fair, it does make us. But it does make us closer.
Oh yeah.
And so that's why I think that, and why we're doing like the video that I filmed with Cetacero's wedding and all that. The reason why I filmed that is just to kind of give a peek of what that looks like without getting canceled, and we have to walk that line, right? Because I understand.
Dude, you put that video out completely, we're getting canceled. Dude.
Because it's like, look, it's vulgar. The things we say to each other is vulgar, and a lot of people, if they would see that, they'd be like, they don't understand it, and they'd be offended by it. But because we're so close to each other, like we know things, what really bothers us.
Yeah.
Like I know what I need to say. What I would need to say to upset you. Yeah. So because we're all super comfortable with each other, there's not much that can really upset.
Yeah, even sometimes we still say that stuff.
And even if if it's somewhat upsetting, in the end, like you won't hate. Like I won't hate anybody for that.
No, you just get mad about it.
You'll get mad about it, and then to be fair, there have been Marines that I like didn't like, and that was a thing. But within the group of people that like I call my friends in the Marine Corps, no. There's basically all rules are off.
Dude, you know, there's shit we said to each other before, and like normal people will be like, I'm not talking to that person ever again.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm saying like, that's what you missed, and that's what I missed when I got out, was the being able to just say whatever I want, basically, to any of you guys, and I'm not gonna surprise any of you. Like that's what's fun about it.
The thing I miss about I can't do that in my job because apparently people have feelings.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'd be catching like I'd just say something very like dark and just out of line. I remember where I'm at. That's
what I try to explain as dark humor, is that look, as long as we are all in on it, like we're all like having fun with it, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with dark humor. I do think that sometimes because people have gone through certain things, there are certain triggers for people. I get that, and I respect that. And so I think we do a pretty good job of like knowing things we don't touch, like certain topics we don't ever cross with certain guys. You get so close to, like, I know the lines of what I can and cannot say to people, mostly because at some point we all tested them. Yeah, like we all said something. We all said something, and like we saw how upset somebody got, and we're like, ooh,
never again.
Yeah, probably can't do that anymore. Yeah. Especially because of the knowledge we all have. The next thing we know, right? These guys are come in like, with a rifle loaded. It's like, hey, the range is that way.
Not today, boy.
Right. And so that's why I'm saying, like, we understand that there's that basic respect of like, hey, yes, there's a human element here too, but also, dude, like, we're all Marines at the end of the day. Like, I'm not gonna disrespect you to that degree, because I know what you're capable of and you know what I'm capable of. Yeah. And so we just respect that about each other, and we're able to learn that and then not do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I know we sit and we talk here, and I was uncomfortable with it too when we were doing when we were having the conversation in the vehicle of like, oh, we can't say this, we can't say that. It's like, no, like we in this vehicle are comfortable with it.
Yeah,
and that's
the thing is, everybody in that car was military, except
even his brother. His brother is Navy.
Yeah, it counts, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he wants to be a corpsman or whatever. So Greenside. Yeah, he is a corpsman. Exactly. So it's fine. Like he's everybody's in on it, as long as everybody's okay and nobody's getting hurt. It's fine. The one thing that you have to make clear is that, hey, this is a joke between us, and like we're not saying this to anybody else. We're saying this to each other.
Yeah.
It's funny because we're not supposed to say it. That's why it's funny.
Yeah, it is.
That's why it's funny.
That's why I said what I said.
Exactly. And so that's what I kind of tried to explain is that our humor is funny because we're not supposed to laugh about it. That's why it's funny.
Yes, and it's
Not
fucking hilarious.
exactly, and not because we like believe it or because like we actually want to hurt anybody's feelings. It's because dark humor gets us through hard times. That's how we deal with it.
It's like, dude, it's 3 a.m. You've been up for 24 hours. You just say some
Exactly. You say some ridiculous things.
shit.
Yeah, you say
so out of pocket.
as the most ridiculous thing you can possibly say that you should never say anywhere else.
Everybody laughs.
Like,
makes everybody feel better.
Exactly. Suddenly everyone's happy again, and at least it removes that feeling of like I hate this. Right. And that's the purpose of dark humor is to make you laugh when you are going through something that most people would not laugh about. That's I think what makes Marines. I think that's what makes Marines resilient. Is that in combat these guys laugh like these guys are having a blast, dude. Like literally.
About that, I was a while ago. I was at a bar. I saw this vet, right? And he had like this. He had like a really nice watch. I'm like asking, like, hey, how much is that? He was like, I don't know, but it cost me an arm and a leg. He was missing a fucking arm and a leg. And we're like, I fucking love that, dude.
Right. And so like that's kind of like what you learn to. And I'm not saying that that's the only way to deal with things. And in fact, the reason why I have this whole setup is because I know that there's more to it than that. But at least in that moment, it can make the difference between making something doable and not doable. Yeah. And so it translates to how we interact with each other outside of it, where we're having a conversation during his wedding or during us driving to his wedding, and we're saying off the cuff things that you're like, oh, we're gonna get canceled, and that was kind of funny too to think about. Like, if anybody heard this, like they'd probably be done. Yeah. And so it's like. But I also don't want it to be like a thing of now we have to kind of pretend not to be ourselves to please other people. Like, no, the point is we're letting people in on how we interact with each other and how we get through things, and what makes it unique. Because this is what makes it unique. If you want to see what the truth behind servicemen and women and what it is that gets them through things, here it is. This is it on display.
It's also it's very different from way what you treat your coworkers. Like a 9 to 5 to what we do is like
right. And so there's no like clocking out, right? And and it's the same whether you're active duty or you're on a field op in reserves. There is no clock out time. Like you're done. You're
done when you say
you're done when you get the things done that you said you were going to do. Yeah. And so sometimes that sucks. That means you might be up from 5 a.m. until like midnight to 1 to 2, 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. Yeah. And that's sometimes what it takes. And so then nobody wants to be up longer than 16 hours. So what do you need to get through it? Dark humor. You just say ridiculous things. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that as long as everybody knows what the lines are, everybody knows that we don't say things to personally attack each other. We just say things that are off the cuff that could be about anything and that we all agree to be a part of. It's fine. I don't think there's wrong with it. So as we are getting close to our time, so I did want to ask you a few questions. I know mostly I mostly talked on this one, but I just see that's one of the things that you and I just relate to a lot of the things that you say. Yeah. And so it just brought back a lot of memories. But anyway, I did want to ask you, what is it that you have going on now, and what's your goal for the future?
Right now, I just got a job at the Cubs, so I'm just doing that for now. I'm just getting money because bills came out of nowhere. So yeah. But what I've been trying to do right now is get this job at a private security company. It's called Paragon Systems. They do basically all the contracting jobs for federal agencies and federal buildings. Trying to get that, and also I want to go out to school and get my degree in Homeland Security to allow to go to some federal agency, FBI, NCIS, stuff like that.
Nice.
It's a lot of work, more than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is that. It seems kind of like I'm kind of unorganized right now because I want all these different things, but it's all right now everywhere because shit just happened real out of nowhere. So I'm trying to get it to where I have one specific goal in mind right now it's just getting a better paying job, which is the one I'm talking, the security one I'm talking about. And after that, I would once I'm financially stable once again, I want to start going to school once I have a bit more time and get my degree. That way I can do what I always want. I always want to be a federal agent. FBI is what I always want to be. That are like a marshal. One of those things that I always wanted to be. So once I get my financial stuff secured and a job that's that keeps me stable until I finish school. So in the meantime, also I'm been getting better health. I mean, met me. I was kind of chubby when I checked in.
Yeah, no, but you did go through phases. I feel like you went through.
I fluctuated a lot.
You fluctuated. You did. Yeah.
And right now, since I got back, because when I was over there, I had my friends. All the guys I was employed with, they were all like gym brats, dude.
Yeah. At some point, you got pretty bulky.
Yeah. And right now, I've been running a lot. I'm going to run a 5K next month. Which is something I would never do outside the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I mean running. I ran so much that I eventually hated it, and so now I do a mix of running and lifting, and it's been a super good balance.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. I just want to promote. That's the thing is like I just haven't promoted it, and I've been in for almost 7 years.
Yeah.
So that's the thing I've been wanting to promote, but the only thing that holds me back is just my scores for physical tests. I mean, and everything else though, no one fucks with me.
Well, I will say so that means that if you make any of the FBI or CIA or whatever security you're trying to go through, I probably won't be able to talk to you that much. Then that's all right. You're gonna be a famous man, or you're gonna be a hard to find man.
We'll see about that. I'll go where the money is. All right.
Okay.
That's probably the best part.
Fair enough. But no, I mean those are good things to aim for. You clearly like security. You've been doing that for a while. I mean, it's kind of a natural thing for a lot of Marines anyway.
Yeah, that's why
is that you just go to something that feels familiar and kind of help you grow a little bit. So I mean, I hope that goes well. And what And that's what you have planned for the future. But I do have a few questions that I wanted to ask you that I ask every guest that I forgot to ask. I think one person I talked to before this. But anyway, one of the things I want to ask was you already answered about what you have planned for the future. But if you could talk to your childhood self, what would you say?
It would be a lot of don't really care what people think, because that was a thing for me when I was little. I would care a lot what people would say about me, because when I was in middle school, like I look white. I would look like I'm Caucasian, dude.
Yeah, we established that. Yeah,
yeah. And the middle school when I was growing up in school, it was predominantly Hispanic. Like Beaner, and then African Americans. So I was basically the only kids that was white, and I was also a nerd. I didn't really care about sports. I would read a lot. I would just read a book when I was little, and I got bullied a lot. And I would care too much about what people were saying about me. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I stopped, trying to trying so hard in school, not being a nerd. And that's kind of when I fell off at school wise, because at one point, I was scoring pretty high in all my tests. I was a good student. And I let what people had to say to me affect me too much.
Yeah, that's a hard lesson to learn. And one that I learned recently myself was it's easy enough to say, like, hey, don't let other people's opinion dictate how you run your life and how you move. Yeah. But it, to some degree, it's almost like a built-in survival mechanism of like, oh, I do want to do things that help other people, or I do want to do things that doesn't make me a burden. Yeah. But it does have to. There's a balance, I think. I think you do have to say, okay, I want to be the best version of myself because that's what's useful to other people, but also because it's good for me. Yeah. Right. And so, do you feel like you found that balance?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I still, do overly care, especially,
Yeah.
It happens more when you're dating somebody. That's when
I agree with you.
Toxic.
I agree with you.
But for the most part, I've found that like people can say the worst things to me. I'm like, oh, I don't care, dude.
Yeah, I will say that in some ways you have become more relaxed over the years that I've known you, and specifically more when you just gained more experience. It just became more noticeable that you were a little bit. You weren't so. What do you call it? You weren't so jittery.
Oh,
I found you to be jittery when you were like newly checked in. Like, hey, go do this. But you'd like think about it a lot, like overthink it.
oh yeah. I was like, how do I do this? Am I doing it right? All that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so when you came, the biggest transformation I saw was when you came back, like I mentioned from that deployment, and you just felt more comfortable, more confident.
Oh, yeah, dude, 100%.
And I do think that has helped you in outside of the Marine Corps. I do think that in your person, I see you're more comfortable with yourself.
Yeah. It's also like, I don't, what's his name? I don't even know Castillo. I tell you, notice it too. Also, like, I walk in, people still give me shit for being a Lance and being six years in. I look at my fucking chest. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking nice, dude.
Yeah, you do have some awards now that I don't have either. And so that's cool, man. I'm glad that you got that experience and you did get really, I feel like you've done just about everything there is to do, really, that most guys want to do when they're in the Marine Corps. And so, but hey, if you still want to stay in, man.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to re-enlist, but they won't let me.
Well, there you go. Yeah. So basically, yeah, I mean, whenever it is that you feel like, hey, I'm over it.
Yeah,
you can do that, and you have the freedom to do it. Fortunately, yeah. And so I wish you well there. And last question though for you is, have you discovered purpose? And if not, what do you think it might be?
Oh, that I'm still not too sure about that one.
Okay.
Right now, I really don't know what, like, if my purpose is, to just survive, I guess, because just trying to keep afloat, stay healthy, happy. That's basically what I have right now. I don't have, I don't have a girl, I don't have kids, I don't have anything.
Right.
So there isn't really that big of a purpose for me right now. But not to be like, depressive or anything.
No. I mean, that's reality. Everybody finds purpose at different times. And one thing that might, maybe this will help you, maybe it won't. One thing that helped me was I asked myself, what was I avoiding? Like what's something that makes me really uncomfortable to tackle? And I started with that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of hard as change.
Yeah.
Because I've been offered like opportunities to go and work places like in California for my friend, $160,000 a year job. But I'm like, I don't want to leave home. And it sounds dumb when you say it, but like,
no,
it's a real fear. Like leaving home, I've lived my same place for the past 26 years. Like,
you don't know anything else.
Yeah, I don't know anything else.
And it is. I'll tell you, it is from experience. It is scary to take that step and to realize, like, yeah, I can't really come back. Like for me, well, for you, hopefully that's never a thing. But for me, like, it did become a thing where it was like, I really can't come back. Like, there's no. This is not doable for me to return. Yeah. And so it is scary. And so I understand completely when you say, like, yeah, it's scary. But deep down inside, at some point, I think something will drive you and you'll be like, I have to do something.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be, hopefully it's not something traumatic, because that's sometimes what happens. People get triggered by something traumatic in their life. Hopefully something, positive that drives me to like, just get out of here or try something else,
And in that, I think you'll find when it's the right time for you, it'll happen. And a lot of times it happens out of like sheer frustration, which is what it was for me.
Yeah.
It was just out of like, I am so like, I cannot keep doing things like this anymore. And then that's what made me want to do something different. Yeah. And then it'll be the way that I think the way that it happens for a lot of people, and hopefully what's motivating enough for you is when you go, okay, I know how this story goes. If I continue this way, I know where this is going to go. And I would much rather risk making that leap and messing that up than to come back and just know that I'm guaranteed to stay where I'm at if I don't do anything else. Like, I won't get anything else but this. If I, at some point you'll get tired of that.
Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons I joined the Marine Corps was when I did it was like, I'm tired of college. I'm tired of, going to the same class every day and not really understanding anything. Fuck it.
Exactly. And so then that's, I think you're close to it. I think you're at some point And in that is, I think, where you find your purpose is when you go and you do that uncomfortable thing. You're like, oh yeah, that's the thing. I really like doing this, and I wasn't gonna find it until I did that super uncomfortable decision of trying to leave home. And you keep in mind, I don't think your parents would say, "Don't come back," right?
Oh,
like if something doesn't work out. So at least remind yourself that, hey, I can try this.
Yeah.
So that way you can kind of take that step, because I wouldn't want to leave home either if I got along with my parents. Like if I had loving parents, why would I want to leave that?
Yeah.
Right. But at some point you're going to go, okay, this is too comfortable, and you're going to get that itch. Yeah.
That does happen a lot. Cause I'm like, when I came back, we had those, you have no touch when you come back. I was really comfortable. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I have money. I'm not doing anything. After a while, I'm like, I'm really fucking bored. I gotta do something.
And it'll happen in the time it's supposed to. And so don't rush it. Don't worry about like, should I do it now? You'll know when you have to do it. You'll absolutely know it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people, like, I know my cousins, they did this. She went to college, and cause she was tired. She like wanted to leave and try something new. I'd say fucking hated it. She went to college, like the whole, I'm gonna live out in the city and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking hated it.
Yeah. So just, you'll know. And then when you do, don't ignore it. That's all. That's the only thing I could tell you is when you have the itch, don't ignore it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that goes well for you. But hopefully we don't have to wait a year to have you back on. I like to check in at least once a year with guys. But if we can have you on, maybe every 6 months at least.
I'm fine with that.
So, but we'll talk more. And appreciate you coming out and having a conversation with me. I know you and I have always had more of a joking relationship of like just kind of poking fun at each other, like, shut up, you shut up. And we just kind of say that back and forth. But it is nice to know the other side of your personality. And hopefully you got to see some of the other side of my personality other than that.
Yeah.
And that we see each other around a little more often. That'd be nice.
Yeah, maybe we'll see each other when Sarah's divorced,
I don't know about that, but I hope to see you more often. Yeah. But anyway, appreciate you coming on, and we'll have you on again.
All right, man. Thanks.
Yep.